everybody, welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host Steve and me, Nick. How are you, Steve?
Good. How are you today?
I'm good.
This is exciting today.
Yeah, we've got a pretty cool one today. We're talking all things men's health today.
Yes,
it's all about the men today.
About time.
Yeah, but in saying that, women don't check out now, because it still involves any woman that has a man in their life. It's still
Which
relevant.
is most of them, whether it be a son, a father, a brother, a husband or whatever.
A best friend, anything.
Yeah, anything. Men's health is extraordinarily, we're going to talk about how extraordinarily underwhelming it is. Our health is pretty bad, most of us, and there's lots of reasons for that, and we're going to go through all of them. But you've got some amazing statistics here about men's health, which is a little bit scary. I'm a bit terrified by the first statement you've got here on here. This is from the ABS website, so this is the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
Yep.
And the first one, read that one out for us, Nick.
So Australian men are more likely than Australian women to get sick from serious health problems, and their mortality rate is also a lot higher.
In other words, we die more.
Yeah.
And that's very scary. And we do get more sick. We get more cancer, by the way.
Yes.
Men get about 30% more cancers.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny? Because I've surveyed, real strict survey. I asked people out there, I say, women get more cancer.
Yeah.
And it's like, no,
man.
It's and I've just picked cancer. I mean, heart disease, men get more heart disease as well.
They get more heart disease until a certain age, and then I think women catch up.
What's that age, Nick?
Oh, yeah, 50.
Yes, that's right. It's around
it all happens at 50.
Yeah.
But yes, there is a lot of issues with men's health, and I think a lot of the issues which we'll talk about are, social stigmas and, how men have been brought up and all that sort of thing. I think the younger generation, it's changing a little bit. They're more, I guess, inclined to address their health issues and talk about we're going to talk a little bit about mental health as well, that type of thing. So they're more inclined to address these things, whereas older generations of men, maybe not so much, because it was something that you didn't talk about. So I think that's part of it. And we'll talk about some of the other reasons why perhaps men don't address their health problems.
We're shockers. We are, my generation too. It's a generational thing that you don't show weakness and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think strength comes from admitting when you're doing something wrong and changing it.
Yes.
I think that's being a strong man, is to recognise this. But I've got these stats here. Even kids. You've got a stat here on kids. I mean, like accidental drownings.
Yeah. Boys account for 2 out of 3 deaths.
For drowning.
I know, right?
And kids swim.
Yeah.
And I think boys have this risk-taking thing.
I think they do. I mean, we don't have children, but, my brothers and things have children, and growing up, with brothers, they do a little bit more crazy things.
Oh, I remember when I was a kid, geez, all those decades ago, it was like we used to idolise, Evel Knievel and Dale Buggins. These were people that used to jump motorbikes across cars and buses and all this sort of stuff, for those who are young to remember these people. And we used to try to emulate that without helmets on our push bikes. Crazy stuff. Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Saying that, now I think about it, neither of my brothers have broken a bone. No, I've broken heaps. So my family.
You're into horses. Which
I was into horses, but yes.
Terrible thing.
But yeah, and there's high-risk groups as well. So
okay, so who lives longer, men or women?
So women live longer. We have our own.
This is one of these podcasts I'm going to be a bit depressed about, isn't it?
I know. So Australia ranks high in life expectancy rates.
Yeah, so we're all pretty good. We're around the 80-odd, and women 82, men 78-ish.
That's right. But men don't live as long as women, obviously. No. And there's certain male populations that have lower expectancy in Australia this year.
Highlight some of those ones.
So our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander men. Yep. That's one. Migrant men.
Yep.
As well, men who live in rural and remote areas. That's pretty. There's a lot of issues in that population as well.
Yep.
Socially disadvantaged men, men with disabilities, men who are in prison.
And there's so many more. Males are wildly overrepresented in jails around the world.
Yeah, definitely. Non-heterosexual men, including gay and bisexual males, transgender people, and intersex people. So they're some of the populations that have a much lower life expectancy. So.
It's remarkable, and they some of them are self-evident. If you are a migrant, you may have less English skills. You may therefore less likely to talk or see a doctor about your problems,
And also a lot of them come without family. So there's no family sort of structure to help with that, so support or anything like that as well. So a lot of isolation that can be part of that as well.
And you mentioned remote areas of Australia. Of course, a lot of men live remotely and women, of course.
Yeah.
But so they're less likely to come across, for example, health interventions.
Yeah, and a lot of them live on, that they farmers and things like that, and so there's also that impact of the environment and crops or whether they've got livestock, and then how the environment impacts them, the weather. And that can cause a lot of mental health issues. Financial stress can cause a lot of mental health issues out in the rural areas. So, and isolation, as you said, can be really hard to live out in those areas as well. So there's factors that impact that, definitely.
There's a lot of men that affects. Yeah. I mean, it's quite incredible. Okay, so these effects, what are some of the health conditions that men overrepresent that we have to really talk about?
So the top 10 causes of premature death in men, according to Australian Bureau of Statistics. Ischemic heart disease.
Yes, heart disease, heart attacks. So what this means, ischemia means lack of blood in the area. So you get a clot in the arteries that feed your heart, and it just, that part of the heart dies off.
Yeah.
And you can survive that, or you can die from that. And about 30% are fatal.
Yeah.
So, there's terrible issues, and men just get huge amounts of heart disease because largely we don't take care of ourselves.
No, that's a big part of it, and we'll talk about that. Lifestyle factors as well that come into play. Dementia and Alzheimer's disease is number 2. So that's
it's funny because women get more Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Men get dementia and at quite high rates.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because dementia is one of those ones that sort of sneak up on you.
Yes.
And it means you become you're less safe on the roads. Just for example, you can get more car accidents, you could fall, you could, anything. But also self-care drops.
Yeah.
So, dementia is a huge one, and Alzheimer's, of course, which is a severe form of dementia.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what else you got there?
Trachea and lung cancer.
Yeah, men,
I wonder.
Yeah, we smoke
smoking.
More. We smoke more.
Men smoke a little bit more. I guess that's a generalisation, but it does appear that way.
Of course it is.
Cerebral vascular diseases.
So we're talking strokes and stuff.
And things like that.
Yeah. One of my best friends had a stroke.
Yes.
Yeah, he survived it all right. He's in his 70s, so he's a bit older.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he's good now, but, his strokes are everywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they can
what
be
else?
very impactful. Chronic lower respiratory diseases.
Yeah, so your deep respiratory diseases.
COPDs and things like that.
COPD, that's congestive obstructive pulmonary disease. That's right. I can remember that.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my best mates' fathers got COPD.
Yeah, I've got a friend whose father has it as well, actually.
Wow.
So, we have more men there. Prostate cancer, which we can go into a little bit more.
100%.
That's
a male thing, isn't it?
That's definitely a male. No women that I know of have
Now people are listening to this need to say, what about breast cancer and that sort of thing? And all cancers are terrible.
Yeah.
All cancer. Right now, my cousin in her 40s has it. She's a woman, and she's got terrible cancer in the kidney. I mean, so it doesn't mean that we're not saying women don't get cancer.
No, women won't get prostate cancer. They won't get prostate cancer. But in talking about breast cancer, men can get breast cancer as well. So less common, but they can. So blood and limb cancers, including leukemia. Diabetes.
Yeah, we get more diabetes than women.
Yeah,
because we're fatter than women.
Yeah,
women do take care of their body shape more, and that raises other issues.
Yes,
they're overrepresented with anorexia nervosa and bulimia.
Yeah,
but men. Most, and I'm being very general here, don't care as much about their health as women do.
Yeah.
And also it's become socially acceptable to get that big beer belly and almost a badge of pride in some, and so that's extraordinarily unhealthy for the body, for all sorts of diseases.
And that's a whole other argument with the social stigma of weight with women.
Yep.
But I mean, obviously our audience, a different audience, and the men that listen to our audience are very, very much into their health and fitness and
sure.
Good body composition and things like that. But it can be a problem for men. Colon and rectum cancer.
You get way more GI cancers.
Yeah, I think diet comes into play a lot there as well. So that's interesting. And then suicide.
Suicide's huge.
Yeah.
About 3 to 7.5 times that rate of women.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about mental health, and we're going to talk about that a lot today, men suffer, it depends on which mental health disease, but they suffer more catastrophic mental health problems.
Yeah.
For a myriad of reasons, and we're going to talk some of those reasons, but it all ends up in suicide rates being much higher for men. In Canada, it's 3 times more. In Australia, it's about 4 times as much as women. So it's very catastrophic and very sad. I've got a graph here that I'll put up there to show the camera, but you can see there's 3 lines on this graph. For these who are listening, there's 3 lines. There's a lower line going along the bottom area, and there's a middle one. There's one right at the top with high rates. The male are at the top, the women are at the bottom. And you can see that men's suicide peaks around the age of 50, as does a woman, but then drops away and then re-emerges around the age of 80.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, we have this little flick thing, as you can see there.
Yeah, it just goes straight.
Yeah, and women just peak in their 50s and then drop away.
Down, yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, and that's sad because I think men are seeing their final days and saying, look, I'm out of here. And that's very sad.
It is sad.
So incredibly high suicide rates. So, okay, so what apart from suicide, according to the Bureau of Statistics, you've got some stats there about, different deaths. And one of them, you said that, of course, men don't die during childbirth and women, of course, can. But that's rare.
Yes.
Dying, it never used to be.
Yeah.
It was quite a common thing. But now we can sort of mitigate some of those risk factors.
Yeah. So there, we can talk about some theories.
Yeah, let's go into some theories.
About why is it that, with men's health issues that, suicide's higher and these issues can be quite high. Yep. So there's different theories.
Yep. What about start with healthcare?
Yeah, so in the healthcare system in Australia.
There's billions of dollars on healthcare.
Yeah.
Where's that spent?
So most of it's spent in needs of women, really. Most of it is because, women have children.
Yes.
And women, the pregnancy and all of that sort of thing. And then the stages of a woman's life hormonally, there's can be a lot of issues around there. So a lot of that money goes into research and things for women. So that can be one factor.
And that's interesting because I think women vocalise their health problems more than men. Because you remember it's men is like, oh, toughen up, mate, and all this sort of terrible attitude that you've got to have. It's like, that's causing men's downfall, this stiff upper lip business from the English days and that sort of thing. But
definitely.
And that's because more of the healthcare is spent on women because they vocalise it more.
That's right, yeah. And it's even in here, and this is quite true actually, if you've ever been to a doctor's clinic waiting room, a lot of the magazines are women's based magazines. They have all the toys in the corner for the kids. So it's very female kind of focused even area in the clinics. So there's that side of it.
And you said something very interesting too, Nic, because you're a naturopath and you're practicing naturopath. Nicole Brown, naturopathy, you can see you. Now, you mainly see women?
I see mainly women, but I do see men. Like I'd say maybe 15%.
Men.
Yeah, 15% of men.
We represent 50% of the population.
That's right. And that's only in the middle, when I first started out practicing, I didn't see any men at all. So that was 10 years ago. And
you might think, what about male naturopaths? Well, I'm a male naturopath. And when I was practicing, I saw mainly women.
Yes. Yeah.
Occasionally men.
Yeah.
But people say men feel more comfortable talking to other men. I don't think that's true. I don't think men feel comfortable talking about their health with anybody.
No, they don't. They don't.
My GP is a female doctor just because it has been for years. I don't think of her as a woman.
Yeah.
It's just like she's a doctor.
As we were saying before we started, they're just people. Like as practitioners, we don't see male or female, unless, of course, we're talking about a sex-specific condition. But they're just all people. Like there is no sort of doesn't change in a practitioner's eyes. So, but men definitely are a lot less open, and even men that you see in clinic, they're a lot less open than women. Will talk about a lot of things, whereas men, they have to be prompted a lot, and that comes from that that the way what's been drummed into men as they've been growing up. Exactly what you said. You don't talk about your problems. You don't want to look weak by saying you've got an issue. tough it up and keep going, all of that sort of thing. Men are the breadwinners, so they have to just keep going no matter what. So and that's one of the other points in for some of the theories. So men are likely to work full time, and as I said, they can be, and I guess it's less likely these days that they're the breadwinners because a lot of women are now, making a lot of money and supporting families and things as well.
My wife's a nurse. How rich is she? She get paid all sorts of penalty rates.
Paid a lot of money.
It's astronomical.
Yes.
Some of the
nurses are probably going to be up in arms and send us emails about that.
No. Look, it's the toughest job in the world. She's in a AODS today, which is alcohol and other drugs. But the pay they get is great. And there are male nurses, but it's a female-dominant profession. Yeah. But it goes to that, we look at men, you say, working full-time. Men often work in more dangerous industries. They're more likely to be in construction.
That's true.
Likely to be tradies, we'll call them. And I'm not saying women can't be tradies.
No, and there's a lot of great female tradies out there, but they're probably also addressing their health issues if they do get hurt on the job, things like that. So,
and brickies are mostly men, and you saw about the farms before, they're mostly men, and the stats are quite clear on this. So they do more dangerous professions, they're more likely to go to war. I mean, we're only hypothesising, and it's just that's the way it is, and which would lead to more men worldwide, more men dying at war. I think that's a pretty clear, summary. Tragically, women die in war too, of course.
Definitely.
They suffer during war, but we're just talking about a death. It's really interesting. It's quite, and you put here that they have a high-risk jobs. But I think one of your points here about a culture to be tough and independent.
Yeah. That's a really big one. I mean,
that's huge.
How many men, and I know in my life, how many men that I have never really cried in front of anybody. Men, they're not supposed to cry. They're not supposed to show emotion. They're not supposed to show weakness. They're supposed to be the protector and they're supposed to look after the family and make sure and we're not going into the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus type thing, but that men's role in life is the provider and the women's role is the nurturer. And I'm not saying that that's the way it is, but that, things have changed, obviously, and any sex can be anything.
Yes.
But, older generations, they were the provider. So they have a lot of pressure to provide for the family and, with all the stresses that come along with that, the way the world is now, the economy, that type of thing, there's a lot of stresses involved in that. And so men would feel the pressure. And, that's where a lot of mental health issues come in, that anxiety and the depression and all that type of thing, because there's a lot of pressure and they can't, I guess it's not as socially acceptable. It's changing, as I said, to have an outlet for the issues that men have. They just really don't speak up a lot of the time. And then obviously, things spiral and then that's why passively there is a lot more.
A very close friend of mine fairly recently passed away and, it was very sad, very tragic. I went to the funeral. He was my age. I went to primary school with him. He was 56 when he passed away. And he had terrible health, right? So this is not, but before he passed away, he had mental health issues and went to Men's Shed. And I think that was really useful because men go there and in this particular one, they'd go there and they'd make things and you didn't sit around and you talked, although I gave a few talks there on men's health over the years. And, but it was a way that men could have an outlet where they shared with other men. At the men, there were ladies there too, by the way, this Men's Shed, which is fine. But it was a way that men sort of seeked help without seeking help, It's typically, and these men, I was one of the youngest there. So you can imagine the age. Yeah, I know.
Been old then,
I was probably the youngest. But the health problems that they encountered there, they would talk about their male-associated health problems. Some that were mental health, some that were physical health, and they felt more open to do it. So I think that's a really good initiative.
Oh, it's an amazing initiative, the Men's Shed. I remember when it all started years ago. It's great. Yeah, because it gives them, like you said, it gives them a bit of a safe space to talk a bit amongst other men without feeling judged and all that sort of thing. So I think that's a big part of it. Men have just been conditioned over the years to suck it up, really, whereas women more emotional and this is what they're saying. This is not what I think, but this is, women are more emotional. They're more likely to talk about things, and it's more accepted for women to talk about things. So
Absolutely, and I think that's a good thing. And but men to be strong these days, it's not like to be silent. You've got to admit when you've got problems. This is none of us are psychologists, psychiatrists.
No.
So mental health is but we're talking about it to raise awareness for it, really. But there are physiological things that naturopaths can really do to help a man's health. And let's talk a little bit about teenagers. I remember when I was a teenager, you do feel indestructible, and you just never talked about it. But what we did was we got into drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
Men, and I'm not saying women don't do this.
No,
but men do it more.
Yeah, and I think that's how a lot of men. Well, I feel like it's very difficult in this podcast. We're trying to sort of keep it as balanced as possible. We're trying to be
politically correct.
But we also have to say what we see.
Yeah.
And a lot of men will use drugs and alcohol if they do have depression and mental health issues, to try and help them through, because a lot of them might seek help. So they turn to those things to help. So, which obviously in the long run is not going to work out well. But
my nurse wife Rebecca is working in, I would say, as I just said before, the alcohol and other drugs. Most of them are men, and she deals with a lot of homeless people, which are mostly men. Again, there's not. She mentioned she came across a 25-year-old woman who was homeless the other day, and that's an outlier. You know what I mean? Most homeless people are men. So there's something going on that's not right with men. And it could be that they have, and one of the points you put here about how women are more in touch with doctors because they regularly go to doctors for, I'll just say, normal things like contraceptive pill.
Yeah.
And so they're regularly in contact with men. Well, when I was growing up as a young boy, I didn't go to the doctors.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing to go for. You were pretty healthy.
You just go, when women, they have, like we said, they have babies, they have pregnancy, they have contraception, they pap smears. Women are used to being poked and prodded and all those things, whereas men just really aren't. It's just second nature for women. I mean, the amount of women that I've seen, in clinic, and you don't really care. It's just part of it. It's just part of being a woman. But a man, like you said, they don't have those factors that they have to address as such, so they're less likely to go. So
they don't have a relationship with their, just to say, general practitioner or naturopath, because they don't have those regular interactions that a woman, pap smears every 2 years still, is that the recommendation?
I think it's every 5 years now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go. Sounds the last time I've had a pap smear.
It's been longer than 2 years.
It's funny because even like men over the age, or people over the age of 50, we have to get a bowel screening where we do occult blood in our fecal matter every 2 years. But that's something you just put in an envelope and send it off, and you get a letter back saying...
Everyone over 50 gets one of them.
Yeah, I know. I've had a few.
I got one. I've had a number.
You're only 26.
As my partner said, I guess that you're getting your surprise in the mail. And I thought, why don't you buy me a present? No, it's just a bowel screen.
Oh, God. Oh, but again, that's not. I don't see the doctor for that.
No,
I just see the letterbox for that.
And that's true.
And but women, normal contraceptive pill, pap smears, all these normal stuff, pregnancy, childbirth, that keeps you in contact with your GP. So when you have I'll say a more serious health concern, I'll go and book him with Johnny or Julie, whoever the doctor is, because you know him.
Yeah.
And, I'm at that point now with the GP. I go occasionally. But I've got a relationship with the GP, which is good. But when I was younger, I didn't. I remember the first time I went to a doctor for a serious help when I had my ankylosing spondylitis.
Yeah.
I went to my local GP. My back was aching, and he gave me a week off work and gave me some Feldene, which is anti-inflammatory. And I thought, a week off work? Wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I've got a note for it and everything. And it's like, I'm going to have a week off. And I got sicker and sicker and ended up in the hospital 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I didn't know at that stage. I thought a week off work, I'll be fine by tomorrow because I was 20.
Yeah.
Bulletproof. And you didn't think of this sort of stuff.
No.
It's nuts, isn't it?
It is nuts. So,
God.
Yeah. So, it's funny. It's in this article that we were looking at as well. So, in here it says the Western definition of masculinity includes strength and silence.
Yeah.
So, men may feel it's a sign of weakness or femininity to seek help.
Yeah.
So then that's part of the problem as well. And that comes back to men have to be strong, and they're the providers and the protectors and the everything. And so they can't show weakness because I guess they feel that maybe they let down the family or I don't know.
And it's funny because I see strength if you've got strong enough to ask for help. I see it differently, but you're right. That's the traditional thing.
Yeah, well, there is strength in vulnerability is one of the
that's
sayings.
it, strength in vulnerability.
And it does. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. It's much easier and safer to stay quiet. So there is a lot of strength in being vulnerable and speaking up. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Geez, that's amazing. Yeah, that is interesting. Now, Nic.
Yes.
There is a theory called the masculinity theory. What is that all about?
Yeah. So the masculinity theory proposes that men may start looking after themselves if they stop behaving like tough guys. However, some researchers believe that blaming cultural constructs of masculinity is a way of passing the buck.
It's true.
Bad health may be the fault of the social environment in which men live.
Yep, I agree with that. And that's quite amazing because the buck should stop with the man. If you're a man, it's like, I've got a health problem, I've got to sort it out, even if it's for a selfish reason, like I've got to sort out my health because I'm supporting family, or I've got to sort out my health because my partner is driving. I'm driving her nuts. If you've got a female partner, or male partner, whatever you got. But so that's where the buck stops with the man, and that's been a lot through history. And I think if you're strong enough, you can stand up and admit that you've got a problem and get help, whatever that goes. And that's really an interesting scenario, isn't it? Really interesting theory. I love that one.
See, here's a really interesting one in related to men being breadwinners and the providers and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of research that's demonstrated that a direct link between employment status and men's health.
Yeah.
So a man's self-esteem is closely linked to his role as the breadwinner. Yes. So that comes back to that. Unlike women, men aren't as strongly encouraged to find self-worth in the role of parent and homemaker. Yeah. And I guess that's true because if you see a woman who's out working and a man stays home with the family to raise the children, like that's not as socially acceptable. And I think that there's still a little bit of discomfort around men that choose to do that, which I think is amazing if men want to do that. And I think that'd be great. But there's still a lot of social stigma around that men aren't out, making all the money. So that can be a problem.
It's a huge problem, especially where we still hold on to these traditional roles, where men are the breadwinners and the kids stuff is all women's stuff. And I guess that stems from women breastfeed, men don't. Yeah. So at the very start, a woman has to be the stay-at-home parent because of the breastfeeding and those sorts of things. So traditionally that just lingers through the thing. But very recently in Australia, they have paternal leave, which is not parental leave. It's not. It used to be mother's leave. Yeah. And it changed.
Yeah, maternity leave. And, so is it
paternity. Paternity
leave. They think they get 6 weeks or something, don't
Something
they?
like that.
Yeah, which I think is a great initiative.
But if Beck falls pregnant, I'd poo my pants. But I'd be horrible, I'd be panicking big time. There'd be a lot of mental health going on there. But if she did as a nurse, she gets paid for a year.
Wow.
A whole year.
I think that's pay. Not uncommon, is it? 12 months maternity leave?
In the government it's not. It's what everyone gets in the government.
Yeah. I know.
But that's like for her to get a year off paid, it does encourage her to stay at home. Now, if I took paternity leave, I don't know the circumstances. I haven't looked into it, thank goodness. But I don't think it'd be a year.
No, I think it's 6 weeks. Right. I could be wrong again. We don't have children, so
I don't know, but it's nowhere near a year.
No, I think it's 6 weeks. And I think the initiative was so that men could bond with the babies because they miss out, so that there is that. So I guess, it's better than nothing. But yes, it is very much skewed towards the female. Definitely. So that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, it's incredible. And also, I guess when we talk about this, and it's a little bit with men too, and it's a bit controversial, this, but what we've found from the statistics is that when a woman and a man separate, it's more often initiated by a woman, the separation, and also it's more often that the women get to keep the children as their main custody.
Yeah.
And that's a fact that causes mental health problems in men too.
Yeah, a lot of family breakdowns that can cause significant mental health issues for men because a lot of time the men and again, it's case by case.
Case by case.
But I know from personal people around me and family and close friends and things that has been the case.
Mm-hmm.
The men a lot of times do lose they lose their children. And look, again, there's always circumstances for everything, but a lot of men struggle with losing breakdown of the family and losing custody of their children, or they don't see them as often, and that can create significant mental health issues, financial loss, all of that sort of thing as well. That comes along with that, and I think that's not talked about. And of course, females, there's a lot of issues, and with breakdowns, just have a lot of issues with it as well. But I think it's talked about more than the men's challenges around that losing family and children and things like that. So that can create a lot of issues. And men, again, won't speak up about it.
No.
So they
and also a court decides maybe if they can't come to an agreement, the court decides, and that can be disheartening for a man because let's say he's a good father, he's a provider, but for whatever reason, whoever's fault, it doesn't matter. There's a divorce, and he will therefore lose the custody, the main custody of his children. Now, I've got friends who share 50-50, which is fine, but most are, and the statistics bore out that men lose contact with their children. If they're good fathers, they want to be in their lives.
Yeah.
And it's just a sad situation. Now, I don't know what the answer is to that.
No.
Because women, my mother was single when I was 5 or 4, and I was brought up by my mum, and my dad was every second weekend, a classic thing in my year. And, my mum brought me up great, I think. So, hope so. It's a few. She did all right. She did all right. I spoke to her this morning. So she's
still talking to you. So
it's good. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Now we've talked a bit about depression and anxiety, but how many men experience depression and anxiety? I mean, the number's huge.
Yeah. So 1 in 8 will experience depression, and 1 in 5 anxiety at some point in their life, which is pretty big.
Who's at risk?
Teenagers and the elderly are particularly high risk. Male depression is associated with increased risk of health disorders such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes. Men, as we said before, they're more likely to resort to destructive behaviours, so alcohol, drugs, violence even, and that's that type of thing. Depressed men are twice as likely as depressed women to abuse alcohol and drugs, as said.
And that's an interesting point because, the era that I grew up in, and is that you broke up with your girlfriend, you went out and got on the terps with the mates. That was our way of coping with it. Yeah. And you just got obliterated, and in the old day, you crack on a new girl at a bar or try to, and you're 99% intoxicated. This is how we coped. It's bad. Yeah. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but that's how we coped.
And I think, again, it's that social sort of stigma, again, is that you break up and women are devastated, or maybe they're not, maybe they're out partying as well, depending on what I have in the past when I'm breaking up with somebody, but anyway.
I said, in the movies, women, they just eat a bowl of ice cream or chocolates or something.
Yeah, so I think there's a meme. I probably shouldn't do this.
Here we go.
I think there's a meme that
really with the end button.
There's female and male break up, and the male is out partying and having a great time for the first month, and he's loving life. Like, this is awesome. And the female's sitting on the couch eating ice cream and crying into her ice cream tub. And then after the month, the female's out partying, and the man's sitting in the ice cream crying because he's like, this is actually isn't as good as I thought it was. But in saying that, there is social stigma in that men and women break up, and the women can go through all the emotions, but a man can't.
No.
So, a man has to pretend like it was nothing.
Having had girlfriends, you just said, nah, get over it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, mate. Don't worry about it. There's plenty of fish in the sea.
Yeah.
And all this sort of stuff. And you go, okay. And that's how you cope.
Yeah. But men can just be as upset with breakups as women. And I think
some of them terrible.
And I think that's why a lot of them do turn to drugs and alcohol and partying, because they don't really have an outlet to sort of,
It's incredibly scary what we used to. So all right. So as a practitioner, put your practitioner hat on there. What are some of the signs that you watch for in anxiety, and particularly in men?
Yeah. So anxiety, there's different. There's physical, there's behavioural, there's psychological. So a lot of the physical signs that we've talked about in the past are Tachycardia, so fast heart rate, tight chest, shallow breathing, difficulty sleeping, sweating, trembling, feeling sick, headaches, that type of thing. That can be some of the physical. Some of the psychological things could be intrusive thinking.
Let's stop there. Intrusive thinking. That's the unwanted thoughts that people have.
Yeah.
So these are the people that have, I just can't get that off my mind or something like that. And it's when you're thinking about things that you shouldn't be at certain times. Like the classic one is before you go to bed, where you've got AMS, active mind syndrome, where your mind is going over things that is pointless at 10 o'clock at night while you're lying in bed. But it's real and it's going on and it keeps you awake, and then you lose your sleep, and then it's all just bad from there. What else?
Terrible. So ruminating thoughts, which is that thought that just keeps going around and around in here. So any sort of, and I always say to clients, do you have a lot of mental chatter? Your mind just won't shut off, and it's continual worry, that type of thing, a feeling of danger, like a sense of impending doom. That can be a sign of anxiety. Constantly comparing yourself to other people. Being indecisive is a really big one. Not being able to make decisions. I see a lot of people that just can't make decisions. That can be really big. And difficulty concentrating, that type of thing. So that can be sort of psychological. And then behavioural things, so avoidance. So avoidance type behaviours.
So you're always at home, up in your bedroom, in something that you're playing on your phone or whatever. Yeah.
Isolation, withdrawing from things, restlessness, irritability, being easily startled as well, and then obsessive or compulsive behaviours. That can be really significant as well. So there's some of the symptoms of anxiety, really, really, really common. And we're going to go into a little bit more about what we can do with some of these things as well. We're not just...
Yeah, we're not going to write you off at the end of this.
No. And then depression is the other one that men obviously see a lot of.
That's a massive issue, for men.
Really, really big issue. So, and, a lot of times in clinic you see depression and anxiety together.
Yep, sure.
A lot of people can have both. So some of the symptoms of depression can be sadness, anxiety, guilt, anger, mood swings, irritability, feelings of hopelessness, that type of thing. Crying, withdrawal from others, a lot of the similar behaviour issues as anxiety, being agitated, and then mental sort of thoughts and things. So frequently self-criticising can be a big one as well. Impaired memory and concentration is a really big one. So forgetfulness, like concentration issues, and thoughts of death and suicide is quite common with depression. And then physical things can be chronic fatigue, lack of energy, aches and pains, weight gain is a big one, or weight loss, because obviously, diet, we'll talk about that sort of thing comes into play. Loss of motivation, sleeping too much or too little. So there's a lot of sort of symptoms that can come along with this.
And we've got to reiterate that symptoms of there's the difference between depression and being depressed.
100%. And I think that, and this is what I say to clients is, because obviously I see a lot of clients with mental health issues, is I say, if you're feeling depressed, can you relate it to anything? Or is it just for no reason that you're feeling really flat? So that's sort of the difference between depression and feeling depressed. And the other thing is I think it's more than 2 weeks consecutive low mood is then considered depression. So, if something's happened, so like, your animal died or something, of course that's going to depress you, but there's a reason for it. So a lot of times there can be no reason and you're just feeling really low. So
when we had to put flat face down, I was completely depressed after that. And I would have been psychopathic if I wasn't.
It's awful.
And Beck was depressed, but she didn't have depression, which is unexplained, and being anxious is fine if you're waiting on results to see if you got cancer or so. That being anxious is completely normal. Maybe before doing a podcast, be anxious, that's good. That's normal. But being anxious for you've got a healthy life or, things aren't, and what I used to find when talking to people is they'd be anxious about things. You go, you really shouldn't be anxious about that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like where they have to, you have to put it down to anxiety and not just being anxious, So
there's something I really love. Sorry to cut you off this. I really love, and this is not research based or clinical, but I find it really, I really like it because it's saying that when you have depression, you're living in the past. So, a lot of times there's things that have happened in the past or things that you wish you could change, that type of thing. And anxiety is living in the future. So worrying about things that haven't happened yet. So a lot of people don't live in the moment. They don't live in the present. And I think that's why we talk about mindfulness a lot for people, because if you can bring yourself back to the present, it helps, it helps with a lot of these mental health issues, because you're worrying less about what's going to happen that probably will never happen anyway. And whatever has happened, you can't change it. So you just need to move forward from that. So living in the moment can be really helpful. And obviously
that's really important. And I know people who drag things from the future, fictitious it may be, and say, oh, this is going to be really bad, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they bring it from 2 weeks away and they'll bring it to now.
Yeah. And then it happens and they say, see, I told you so. And I said, yeah, but you quite possibly have made that happen because you focused on it. So, and a lot of times things that you worry about 99% of the time never happen anyway.
Yeah, well, there was a study on that, and it was 85% where people who predicted doom and gloom, 85% of the time it didn't work out anywhere near as bad as they thought.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, and you see that a lot with people, or people come bring up things from the past. Oh, that was in my childhood, so I'm depressed because of that. It's like, how long ago was your childhood?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not saying it's not real. And I know people suffer this.
And it's completely real to people, and not downplaying anything that's happened we've all had things happen in our lives. We've had tragedies and things, but if you focus on them, you can never move forward from them. So I think that's a big thing. And obviously we're not psychologists, so we can't tell you more about that. But I think that's really important. So mindfulness, that's why we talk about mindfulness so much, because it's really important to sort of pull you back into now and reduce those feelings. It
sounds, excuse the language, it sounds a bit wanky when people say live in the moment, but it's true.
But it is true.
Yeah. It's like, living in this region. Okay, so men, what are some of our organic or physical causes that we can have, say, physical or mental health problems? Just be broad. What do we run into? What problems?
So a lot of the physical, when we talk about mental health issues, there are obviously psychological reasons and there's physical reasons, and they can cross over.
Yes.
So they can be purely driven by physical imbalances, or they could be purely driven by environmental or emotional issues, but they do cross over because the physical obviously will impact everything. And then if there isn't a physical driver initially, there can well end up being a physical driver, because depression can lead to, poor lifestyle choices and things which then will impact your health. But if we're talking from purely physical drivers of, say, depression primarily, or even anxiety, low testosterone in men, that's a really significant driver of depression.
That's
low mood,
absolutely
anxiety.
Huge.
Yeah, so and we see it all the time. I see it all the time in clinic.
It's incredible. I got a paper on it, and it's titled The Impacts of Testosterone in Men's Health. And you should read this thing. Like it goes, testosterone action and age-related changes, basically loss of libido, not just sex health, but depression, erectile dysfunction, metabolic, like diabetes, osteoporosis. And I'm just reading the headlights of this paper. All these things, testosterone and prostate cancer, and heart disease, and all these things are related to low testosterone.
Yeah.
And it's like the reason why they know that is because what they've done is they've intervened and given a lot of, in these trials, they've given them, they said, okay, let's inject you with some testosterone and see what happens. They improve.
Yeah.
They dramatically improve.
Yeah.
And I have had testosterone in the past, and it makes you feel amazing.
Yeah.
You just feel like you're invincible. Now, is that the right thing for everything? No, of course not, but it's something.
And it's really interesting because there's a thing called andropause, which we won't really go into too much.
Tell me about it.
There's a thing called andropause.
Tell me about it.
Which is similar to menopause, which is a reduction in the sex hormones. But, women go through menopause, and although it's not, talked about, it's becoming more talked about than it used to be. It used to be a bit taboo. But they go through all these physical changes, and it's kind of expected. Yeah. But men with low testosterone go through a lot of these physical changes as well. But one, it's people don't realise that low testosterone can have all these impacts, and two, you still don't talk about it because a man with low testosterone, God forbid you even say that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stigma around that.
It's like an insult, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you say, you get low testosterone.
Yeah. So that's a big, that's really impactful. So some of the reasons.
Yeah. What are the reasons for men to lose testosterone?
That have low testosterone. Well, aging, obviously, everyone knows that. It can decline as men age. Doesn't have to, but it can.
Yeah, mine's pretty good, actually, I've got to admit, when I tested my testosterone. But, yeah, it can as you age, absolutely. Okay, next one, quick.
Yeah, next one. Poor blood sugar control, insulin resistance, diabetes, those types of things.
So this is the man that doesn't eat well,
Yep.
and doesn't exercise enough. Now, hopefully, our audience is a bit more active, but you've got to remember that most men my age in their 50s are overweight or obese.
Yeah,
like 80%.
Yeah. One thing I will say, and I see it in clinic, with blood sugar issues and even leading to metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes, it's high stress.
Oh, yeah.
So men that are very high stressed, and we can talk about that. So again, have high pressure job, maybe have a young family at home. So they're working long hours. They're coming home and they've got a young family. They're not sleeping well. Mm-hmm. They're trying to eat well and they're trying to exercise, but their cortisol and their stress hormones is through the roof, and that's creating imbalances in their blood sugar control, leading to things like metabolic syndrome. Then they put on weight, which then impacts their testosterone, and it becomes a vicious cycle. So but poor diet definitely is a big part of that. And even executives that have very sedentary roles because they're up in the office at 7 and they're not being home to 7 at night. Well, when do they exercise?
Yeah.
So that can be part of it. Hypothyroidism is another reason, and that's
low thyroid
function. Yeah, and that's not as uncommon in men as you would think. I know everyone hears it with women. It is more common in women because of the hormonal fluctuations and things.
Oh, if you got low energy in a man, it's like, man up, come on.
Yeah, exactly. So that can be part of it. Traumatic brain injury.
Yeah,
so a lot of footballers and in contact sports, things like that. Anyone's had accidents. So zinc deficiency, Steve. That's really common. Really common. One, poor diet, malabsorption issues, immune issues, things like that. So regular alcohol or THC. So a bit of the happy herb.
Happy herb. Yeah, and people go, oh, it's not as bad as maintenance. It's still bad for you.
It can be, yeah. It definitely can impact your testosterone production. If you do that, then that could be a factor. Environmental exposures, so heavy metals, plastics, endocrine disrupting hormones and things, which obviously females and males are exposed to. But as you said earlier, a lot of men are in sort of these mining industry and a lot of women as well, but we're not talking about women today.
No.
A lot of these industries that they're exposed to a lot of chemicals, it can have a huge impact on their testosterone production.
Well, I've been watching Aussie gold diggers.
I do too, Steve.
Do you? I didn't know that.
I do. And the opal hunters.
Oh my God!
Yeah, no, that's our life.
Do you know the? I think they're called the Dirt Devils or something.
Yes.
They got a name for them. Did you see how they extract the friggin' the gold? They use two chemicals that are most deadly: mercury, liquid mercury, and also cyanide.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
these nut jobs who use that.
I know, and they're getting tiny amounts of gold. I'm like, is it even worth it? Really?
I'm always rooting for them.
I know.
Look, there are women involved in it. Then they've got a few on the show, but it's mainly men, and they're mainly out there working in dust and shit and poisons, and they're digging around. Big diggers all day with diesel fumes and all those old tractors, and they're around there with their metal detectors and that.
And how many men are like, their PPE equipment, so personal protection equipment? How many men use that? I mean, obviously in workplace they have to because it's regulations, but a lot of them don't. And in the past they don't. So that can be a really big factor for men, that toxic exposure. So, and then, that impacts liver function and how well you producing hormones and excreting hormones and things like that. Obesity, as we said, definitely it's a big one. And we'll talk about obesity and aromatase, the connection there. Stress, as I said, significant. And the men I see in clinic, a lot of them it's stress related. They have low testosterone, it's stress related. And they're like, I want to get my testosterone. I'm like, up. Well, you have to address the stress because that major impact on all our sex hormone production.
Well, let's get a bit nerdy. We've got cholesterol at the top of our little biochemical thing, and it comes down through pregnenolone, hydroxypregnenolone, DHA. And if you're stressed, it'll go down from progesterone straight through to cortisol.
Yeah.
Okay, which is if you're stressed, and it won't turn into testosterone. So the evolutionary thing is that you right now you don't care about reproducing or any of that testosterone crap because you're stressed. You've got to get away from that short-term stress. But most men are under long-term stress now.
That's right.
Because we're not getting chased by something or have to fight something or escape something or build something quickly. We have to go through mortgages for years and all these sorts of stress, chronic stresses.
Yeah.
And that chronically depletes our testosterone.
Yeah. So, and that's really significant these days. I see that mostly. And then that comes back to the man, the breadwinner, and he has to get the money in the high-powered job, and I see that quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Sleep deprivation, which I guess interplays with stress to a degree as well. So that's significant also, sleep deprivation for men and women. But testosterone's made during the night. So if you're not sleeping well, that's definitely going to impact that production as well. And there was a little study here done. I just put this in that they did. It was just a small study. So they measured daytime testosterone levels in young, healthy men, and then they put them through 1 week of sleep restriction, so restricting their sleep to 5 hours a night, and their testosterone went down by up to 15%.
Jeez, and that's
so within a
week.
Yeah. So imagine if you're chronically sleep deprived, or you're not getting enough sleep over the month. So how is that impacting your...
Well, also, what if you're out there, like a young man out in the drinks and smoking the wacky tobacco till late, and and this really adds up.
Yeah, totally. It all does. So,
and there's medications,
opioids, SSRIs, anabolics. I mean, they're quite anabolic, so steroids, they're used quite a lot.
Yep.
We were actually talking about that before, how it shuts down your own natural production.
We were talking about that before. Let's not detail exactly what we were talking about.
No. But we will say that it does impact your testy size as well. So your testes will shrink up.
I love the way you hold your hand.
I know, sorry. I do that.
You sort of go your testy amount.
I know, sorry. I just... Yeah, so anabolics, a lot of men, and you'll see a lot of men that use them, and they're quite muscular and think, they must have a load of testosterone. They're not producing any of their own testosterone, and it is impacting their testes.
Yes. Unfortunately, their costumes don't hide that fact, do they?
No, we were talking about the costumes of bodybuilders before. We're on stage. But that can be quite significant, and that's why people go through post-psychotherapy, because of those issues. So that can be a big one as well. So,
do you know what they use, the bodybuilders? They use clomiphene, which is a SERM, which blocks estrogen. So your body, it stimulates LH production, so it stimulates the testes to make more testosterone. Now, clomiphene's usually given to women who want to fall pregnant, but it has the same effect in men. It drives LH and FSH, which gives us testosterone.
Yeah.
So clomiphene's a good one for that, if it's prescribed by a doctor, and if it's monitored. It's actually a good one for older men too. It's a good one for that too. But, we digress. What else can cause our shitty testosterone levels?
So that's a lot of the ones that can cause it. So and then there's comorbidities that we find with low testosterone. So if you have low testosterone, you're more inclined to have obesity, insulin resistance or diabetes, metabolic syndrome, sleep apnea, cardiovascular disease. And it can also, if you have low testosterone for long enough, you can develop osteoporosis as well. So that's something. We did a bone health podcast last week.
Most people think that's a woman thing.
Yeah, most people do think it's a woman thing. And so listen to the bone health podcast when it comes out at some point.
Maybe it's out.
I don't know if we're in the future. So I'll just point like this down below. If it's out, the link might be there, or check it out. I don't know. I never can work out where we're at.
No, I don't know where we are.
We do the recording. Matt does all that stuff.
Yeah.
Does the back end stuff.
Exactly. Does he? Okay, good. I don't know if that... I didn't know Matt did all the back end stuff. Moving on to some of the other reasons for mental health issues, physical reasons for mental health issues. And we have done one in the past about nutrition. Yep.
But poor gut health can definitely impact your mental health significantly. So obviously, neurotransmitter production in the gut, inflammation, systemic inflammation, that type of thing can cause issues, neuroinflammation, coming from the gut as well. So LPS producing bacteria can breach the gut lining. We've talked about that many times, cause systemic inflammation. And even some can cross the blood-brain barrier. So that can cause mental health issues.
So inflammation upregulates the kynurenine pathway, which takes tryptophan away from serotonin production and puts it down to quinolinic acid, which is shit.
Exactly.
We don't want that. So we want serotonin.
That's right. And if you want to measure that, we can measure that. So organic acid testing.
Of course you can.
Quinolinic acid and things like that. Inflammation, as I said,
Yep.
neuroinflammation. So upregulated aromatase. Here we go.
Oh, yeah, that shitty enzyme.
Yeah, so there's an enzyme called the CYP19A1, and that's responsible for converting testosterone to estrogen. So, and a lot of it can sit in the adipose tissue. So men that have belly fat, they can produce more aromatase.
So I suck my gut in. Do the biggest gut suck you've seen.
So that's not an uncommon thing. So they're converting their testosterone to estrogen. And this is one thing I've seen in clinic, in men that take testosterone, as I said before, you can give testosterone, and they feel amazing for a little while, and then they suddenly feel terrible again.
Yeah.
And that's an indication that just because you're giving testosterone doesn't mean that your body's still not going to aromatase it. So upregulate aromatase. So that can be a bit of a key that you're producing a lot of aromatase. If you feel great, then you feel crappy again. So it's just converting.
It's amazing because, and I know we haven't gotten the treatments, but when we do, my favourite herb is an aromatase. Well, my favourite herb for testosterone.
Yeah.
Inhibits aromatase, boosts testosterone, and helps you with erections too.
Yes. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So
can't wait for that herb.
No, that's right.
I had some before.
You did have some before. Yes. Yeah. Keep what does it say? Keep posted. What's the word when something's happening?
Posted?
There's something happening in relation. But anyway, we move on. We might have to cut that bit out. I don't know.
We didn't say the name of the product.
Let's move on. But yeah, so what some of the things that can upregulate aromatase? Excessive alcohol consumption, that can do it.
Have you ever heard of the brewer's droop?
Yes, I have, and I never heard of it until you mentioned it the other day, and I thought that's just a brilliant coin of phrase, isn't it?
It is.
Brewer's droop.
When you drink too much alcohol, usually beer, with the hops and everything in it, and it causes your... How do we put it?
Well, it's brewer's droop, so let's just
leave it at that. We don't want to get fined.
But excessive alcohol definitely can upregulate aromatase. Zinc deficiency, insulin resistance inflammation, central obesity, stress, aging, and leptin.
Leptin is a hormone released from your fat cells.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of fat, you've got a lot of leptin.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So how do we inhibit this bloody thing? Let's start getting into some treatments.
All right, so some treatment strategies. So how can we inhibit aromatase?
Yeah,
or aromatase inhibitors.
Yep.
So apigenin.
Yep.
And other flavonoids. So
love it.
My flavonoid, one of my favourite flavonoids is quercetin.
Quercetin.
I love it. I just
love
use it for a lot of different things. White button mushroom, Steve.
I didn't know that.
No. I've actually seen this in a lot more test boosters, actually.
Ah.
Yeah. So very interesting. Grapeseed extract.
Yep.
Genistein.
Yep.
And resveratrol, which is my other favourite.
And genistein was one of the ones that was in soy and that, and we thought, that's really bad, but it actually inhibits aromatase and boosts testosterone.
It does, yeah.
And another one of my favourites, Tongkat Ali, is an aromatase inhibitor.
It is, yeah.
Love that.
That is great. So
all right.
I've got that on my list
so
as well.
Males have got poor health, mental health, whatever you want to call it. What are some of the strategies we can do broadly that we can do to improve men's health?
Okay. So if you are suffering from any sort of mental health issue, as I said, and I guess we have to premise a lot of clients I see are on medication.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful with medications and what you're giving herbally. So if you are on medications, don't just run out and grab supplements and herbs without checking with somebody first, because there can be contraindications.
Absolutely.
So, a lot of these herbs can either upregulate or downregulate the metabolism of some of these medications, so they can either get too much or not enough. So you want to be really careful with that.
It's interesting because it can make it toxic or detoxify.
Yeah, it can.
Hypericum is the St. John's wort. It's one that classically detoxifies drugs. And everyone goes, that's great. So no, you might need this damn drug in your system.
That's right.
You know?
Metabolize too quickly, you don't get the benefits of it. Or if it's too slowly metabolized, then you're going to get an overload of it.
Like grapefruit.
That's right.
Grapefruit. I mean, everyone eats grapefruit. Well, I don't eat grapefruit. It tastes like shit. But
red grapefruits are the best. Have you had a red grapefruit? Oh, so good. Anyway, yes, grapefruits is one. So
I've drunk grapefruit juice before.
I remember your grapefruit diet, grapefruit juice diet.
Oh, I remember those.
Back in the day.
Yeah,
my mum did that one. Yeah, she did.
Did she?
Back in the day? Yeah.
What did she do that for? What was
I don't know, because she's always tiny. She used to be like 40-something kilos, just tiny. But Yeah, I don't know.
40-something kilos.
She's tiny. My mum's little. She listens to these, but she's a little shorty as well. She's like 5'4" or something.
I'm going to say something a bit kinder about Mum if she listens to
I love my mum.
these.
She's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
She loves it, but she loves it.
I've heard you were a bit cruel to her when you were a bit younger.
No, we were a bit mean because my mum's blind, so we used to do some pretty mean things to her. I know, but we were just kids. We didn't know.
You didn't know that tripping a blind person over was a bad thing at that age?
I think I said to Stan once, I didn't. We thought before we started school. I mean, I don't know. My brothers thought this. I thought everyone's mum was blind.
Oh.
And then we've realised she wasn't, so then we started taking her for show and tell.
Okay.
We all took her for show and tell. Yeah.
What's I've got to think. What's the most? What's the?
I think it was more for the dog more than anything.
Cute
the
dog.
guide dog. Yeah, that was the draw card.
It was beautiful. The Labrador.
But Mum,
was it?
she's a trooper. She just went with it. She was the best.
What is the politically correct term for blind person now?
Blind? I don't know.
Is it?
Well, there's visually impaired, but Mum's not visually impaired. She's like visually done. I can't see anything. So she can't see anything.
Visually
so she's not
done.
impaired. I mean, I guess she's impaired. I suppose. She's very impaired.
Oh, my goodness. I'm just trying to think of the polite thing to say.
I actually don't know. But I have a blind mum, so I feel like I can say
Yeah.
Mum's awesome. She tells blind jokes all the time. She loves it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's got the best sense of humor.
No.
She's awesome.
I was going to say one then, but I'm not brave enough.
No, but
all right.
how do we get onto blind?
I have no idea.
Get onto that.
I have no idea what you're doing. All right, so yeah, but let's talk about the strategies to help men.
I completely lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
All right, so
I love your first one.
Yeah, so if your mental health issue is driven by physical imbalance, obviously we address that. So whether that is gut health issues or inflammation or whatever else is going on. So we need to address that first. And then the next thing, which everyone finds is super boring but very important, is support your sleep.
Yeah.
Support your stress response. Vitally important because we can look at supplementation, but again, we've talked about this in the past. Supplementation is not a miracle and it won't fix something if the underlying issue and the lifestyle factors are not balanced. So getting better sleep and improving your stress response is really important. And obviously we can do that with some herbs and nutrients, but also lifestyle, like stress reduction activities, which I talk about a lot with clients, and sleep hygiene. And we've done podcasts on stress and sleep. So go back and listen to those to get some tips there.
Yep.
And diet is a really big one when we're talking about mental health. A couple of reasons. One, because if you have mental health issues, you're less likely to be healthy and eat well. And, because particularly depression, you don't feel like cooking and eating well. So there's that side of it. And also, gut health and that sort of thing comes into play a lot if you do have mental health issues, to make sure that's really balanced. So diet is really important. So I do bang on about the Mediterranean diet because it's sustainable long term. It's really balanced. But, make sure you're getting your omega-3s, your healthy fats in there. You're getting your protein in there definitely every day, getting some fibre in there. So that diet is super, super important when you have any mental health issues. And then support your mitochondrial function.
So that's now mitochondria are DNA-containing parts of a cell that is what we're taught is the powerhouse of the cell. It produces energy. Yeah. So you're talking about that and hormones now.
Yeah, so all our hormone production starts in the mitochondria.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people have quite dysregulated mitochondria, whether that be from inflammation, chronic stress, all those sorts of things, nutrient deficiencies. So it's really important to support mitochondrial health. We've talked about that in the past too. I think anti-aging podcast, we went into mitochondrial health a bit.
Sure.
But, and fatigue is part of mental health issues as well. And a lot of that can be related to mitochondrial function. So you want to have all those supportive mitochondrial nutrients. So CoQ10, lipoic acid, your B complex, magnesium, acetyl-L-carnitine.
Love it.
Glutathione, I love. Bang on about that a lot as well. It's very anti-inflammatory and antioxidant.
Yep.
Fish oil. Yeah. A lot of really, really good studies, and we've talked about them in the past for mental health issues. Really, really, really good. So they're anti-inflammatory as well. There's cardiovascular support.
Brain's got a lot of omega-3 naturally in it. So, it's there for a reason. Yeah,
a really good one. I put a lot of people on good quality fish oils. Don't just run out and get any sort of cheap one off the shelf because most of them are either rancid or full of heavy metals and microplastics and things. So get a really good quality one. And keep it in the fridge, people. Once you've opened it, people don't keep their fish oil in the fridge. Really important because it can go rancid. So, saffron.
One of my favourite little herbs, and we used to have a product out here with saffron in it. And so good for your brain and mental health.
Really good. We didn't bring any studies in there, but there are a lot of really good studies showing that
I remember them.
Yeah, can be as effective for mild to moderate depression as SSRIs.
There was a comparative study where they compared 30 milligrams of saffron compared to 40 milligrams of fluoxetine, which is Prozac, and they found them equally as good as each other. Now, 40 milligrams of fluoxetine is quite a high dose.
Yeah.
Most people are on 20.
Yeah.
And we had a gentleman here who suffered mental health years ago. He doesn't work here anymore. Young guy. And fluoxetine doesn't go well with men.
Yeah, okay.
Really bad for men's health, like sexual health.
Right. Yes.
Really bad.
Okay.
A young man, and struggled with that.
Yeah, and I think that we put that in there. One of the causes of low testosterone is SSRIs. So saffron's great. It's not cheap. That's the only thing. It's very expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive, but it's very, very effective. So that's a good one. B6.
Yeah.
Really important for neurotransmitter production. So zinc, B6, magnesium is like the trifactor for mental health, that type of condition. So other micronutrients, so vitamins A, C, E, so they're all anti-inflammatory as well. Selenium's your Bs, your magnesium. Vitamin D, I mean, we all know about vitamin D and mental health.
Sure.
GABA, so gamma-aminobutyric acid can be quite good as well. 5-HTP. Can be good as well. Again, if you're on any sort of SSRI or anything, do not take it.
No, do not.
Do not. Glycine, we've talked about that in the past as well. It's very good for the nervous system. And inositol as well. Calming adaptogens. So if you have anxiety, you want adaptogens that are quite calming, not stimulating.
Yeah.
So
and my favourite one is withania for that.
Withania. So withania is a great one because it does both.
Yeah.
So it's just a nice modulating one. So, and all your other herbs we've talked about many in the past, passion flower and your ziziphus and your skull cap and your chamomile, nice calming herbs. Stimulating adaptogens for a lot of people that have depression have a lot of lethargy.
Yep.
So they need something to pep them up a little bit. So it's your ginsengs. So Panax ginseng, rhodiola is really good as well.
That is a good one.
Yeah. Even your Siberian ginseng, which is not super stimulating, but it's good for energy production as well. And then modulating, which do a bit of both, which withania is one of those. And then I've highlighted these because these specific for testosterone production.
Oh, look at those ones.
These the top 4, so Shilajit.
Shilajit. I was at the gym this morning and my brother-in-law came and he said, what do you know about, and he mispronounced it, but Shilajit.
Yeah.
And I said,
what do I not know?
What do I know? You've listened to my podcast on Shilajit. We did a whole hour on it.
We did.
Amazing substance.
Yeah. So
Love
go back and listen to that podcast. But
tastes great
amazing.
too.
Yeah,
No,
it tastes
tastes
amazing.
like shit.
And Tonkat Ali. So we've also done a podcast on that. Well, you guys have a podcast on that. So if you can get a product with Shilajit and Tonkat Ali in it, get onto that because that's super, super great. And fenugreek.
Oh my God. Fenugreek.
Yeah, a lot of really good research about fenugreek.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, and withania or ashwagandha. They're the top 4. So products with those, you can find that. They're really great.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so really,
I was going to say that put lead in your pencil, but that's probably not appropriate, is it?
No, that's an old saying.
Is it?
Yeah, it is an old saying. And then lifestyle stuff will be talked about. Really, really important. Exercise is super important.
And people skip over that.
Yeah.
I hate this question. What can I take to improve my health?
Yeah.
Why do you jump to that?
Yeah.
Let's do before you take.
Yeah.
Because we're a supplement company and we're telling you to do the lifestyle stuff first.
Yeah, 100%.
We're not trying to flog, don't worry about the gym, don't worry about the diet crap, just have our capsule.
Yeah.
No. We're about diet and exercise. We're naturopaths.
100%. Yeah.
That's what we do. It's super important.
It's super important. And exercise can make a really big difference to people who have a lot of depression as well. Because, and even fatigue that comes along with that. And people say, I'm too tired to exercise. Well, we've talked about how you will actually improves your energy production because it improves your mitochondria when you exercise. You also, if you want to go outside and do a walk, you're getting sunshine, so you're getting vitamin D. You're getting fresh air. You're getting movement, which is circulation. It's just so important. So, anyone that can't do a lot of exercise, just about everyone can walk. If you can't walk, you can swim.
Yeah.
If you can't swim, you can get a little mini bike so you can sit on your lounge, and we've talked about all that. But exercise is vitally important as well. Yeah, so there's some of the things we can do to help with mood, anxiety and depression.
Yep.
So there's some of the things you can do to help with mental health issues specifically.
Yep.
Obviously, you know, you need to, if we're not psychologists, as I said, or psychiatrists, so we're going to put links below into some places that you can get help if you are suffering from mental health issues. But also, you know, implement some of the things that we talked about today, some of the lifestyle factors, and, you know, look into reasons why, if it's physically driven, whether it be gut health, whether it be inflammation, other, you know, health imbalances within your system that need to be addressed, because they can all be fairly significant drivers in mental health issues.
Absolutely. So. And men stand up, be counted, be listened to.
Yeah.
Talk to your GP, talk to your naturopath, talk to your healthcare professional, talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Talk to your partner about this, disclose things, be honest, be open. Because women are, and look what they're doing. They're living 4 years longer.
Yeah.
They're living much better lives from a health point of view than men. So really, I mean, it's time for men to open up about their health and form partnerships with health professionals so as you can keep yourself healthy. And of course, do the lifestyle things you say. Don't be the man that, oh yeah, I've got to get onto that and all this sort of stuff. You don't. I mean, my mate who was struggling to lose weight and all this sort of stuff, and he died in his mid-50s. And that's unacceptable these days. That's like turn of the century stuff. And I want that to, you know, mean something and be a lesson to men to go out there and look after yourselves. Because then you can look after, you know, say, oh, I'm too busy with my family. You can't look after them if you've passed away.
Well, that's right.
You've literally got to live for them and live healthy for them. Imagine having all that energy. And you can look after your family, you can go for that career, you can do that. You know, you can still do all these things, but without your health, you've got nothing.
That's right. And I think it's definitely shifting, and men are becoming more open. I think, as we said at the beginning, the younger generation of men are a lot more open because it's becoming more, you know, there's not as much stigma attached around it, but it is shifting. But I think, you know, some younger men as well will be having the same issue as older men. But yeah, as you said, start, you know, talking about it, looking after yourself. If you're having mental health issues, definitely talk to someone about it. So, and
if you need to, we've got the helpline. You know, bring up, you know, Beyond Blue.
There's so many. There's the Black Dog Institute. We'll put all the links in. There's quite a lot that can help, and male specific places as well. So
Men's Shed, look for one in your area if you're suffering long term, and go to your doctor. Talk about this. Get testosterone checked. You can get blood tests for that. You know, look after yourselves, guys.
Yeah, we didn't actually talk about testing, but there's definitely plenty of testing you can do. And for hormonal testing, you know, we do Dutch testing, which is really, really intensive hormonal profiling, and organic acid testing, as we said earlier. You can look at your neuroinflammation and many, many other things. So there's definitely a lot of testing. But start talking up, men. Start speaking up and addressing these things.
That sounds great, Nic. I think that's all we've got time for today.
Yep.
We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.